Good to see you both again for what I think is our oxymoron panel, right? Successful failure. I wanted to start, I'm excited to be here because of you two, but I'm also excited because this strikes some themes that I myself have written about or talked about in recent years. And I want to begin by relaying something that was said to me by someone that took me aback, but I think will have a lot of resonance for you. I was talking to a gentleman named Bruce Pock, who was the dean of admissions for many years at Pomona. He now does college placement at a secondary school in the LA area called Chadwick. And he was talking about the high achievers, who get through the selective process and walk onto the Pomona campus. And he said that what he found in so many of them was a stunning fragility. And that phrase has always stuck with me. Does that jibe with what you've seen on campus, and what explains the stunning fragility of so many of these high achieving kids today?
Julie.
As dean of freshmen, my job was to give a damn about my students, and I did. And I think stunning fragility is a lovely way to describe more and more undergraduates these days, by no means all of them. Undergraduates from certain demographics, typically more affluent kids. The term that I used was existential impotence. They say, which I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Well, maybe my worst enemy, but...
Is that cured by Cialis, or?
I'm sure we in Silicon Valley will figure that out. They were not familiar with their own selves, and my job was to take an interest in them becoming more familiar with their own voice and what they wanted to do with 4 short years and what they wanted to do with their lives. And my sense was too many of them seemed to not have made a volitional choice, seemed to not be familiar enough with their own self to make the right kind of choices around major and summer work and graduate school. So I like that term, and yeah, I agree with it.
I think it tracks for me too in a slightly different way. I think there's been a lot of talk about excellent sheep. And I think that was close, but the description that resonates a little bit more with the students I see is ambitious robots. They're not following anyone.
I'm not sure that's a lot more flattering.
No, it's not supposed to be. But
well, nobody eats a robot. You don't chop it up and kill it, right?
I think, though, that what's wrong for me about the sheep metaphor is it's not like they're trying to follow someone. Right? It's that there's someone who's programmed every single element of their lives, and suddenly they arrive at college and there's no one coding them anymore. They're like, well, what am I supposed to do? And what most of, at least our students at Penn end up doing is they go into extreme maximizer mode, which is to say, let me become the president of every club, get perfect grades in every class. I'm going to take 9 classes in a semester. And then I wonder why I have freshmen in my office hours crying because they got their first ever A- in life.
Yeah, and the thing is they do still have people attending their every move, though. I mean, we saw a tremendous increase in parents coming to college with their kid and staying, and I know you know. Basically to supplant themselves into the role you'd expect a student to play in their own life at college, to talk with the professor when they got a bad grade in chem freshman year. The parent thinks they have to do that for the kid. The parent thinks they have to intervene if there's a sticky roommate situation. So the students seem to be accustomed to and reliant upon parents to advocate for them, make choices for them, help them cope, and all of this contributes to a young person being kind of fragile.
But how do you, once they've gotten to campus, how do you cut those apron strings for them? How do you make that go away when that's a dynamic that's been in place for a long time before they ever got to you and is pretty well embedded at this point? Either one of you.
I mean, I'll say the thing that I've learned the most from Julia's work is the importance of normalizing struggle. I think we do a horrible job at that in universities, and you can talk in depth about how you've tried to tackle that, but what I've been struck by, I guess, are 2 things. One is that we as faculty and staff and administration do a really poor job helping students see that we have failed and we've been imperfect in lots of ways. I think they often assume that to get where we were, we basically went from success to success to success. One of the ways that we tried to change that perception recently was, the Jimmy Kimmel mean tweets that go on? We did a mean reviews where we got a bunch of professors to read the worst student evaluation comments we've ever gotten, and we made a video about it. And I will say,
really smart.
I had some trepidation about it, going on screen and saying, you remind me of a Muppet. I really don't want to put that out there. But I just did.
But you, but you were showing them that you could take it and survive and.
Yeah, and that, look, we all get harsh feedback sometimes. We all struggle. It's, part of the process of being human. The other thing is there's a really amazing Nicole Stevens study that was done at Northwestern where she was able to erase the achievement gap between first-generation college students and their peers with a 1-hour workshop. And all the workshop was basically upperclassmen who came from similar underprivileged backgrounds talking about the struggles they had faced and saying, like, look, this is hard. And that helped a lot of the freshmen who are new to college and hadn't been taught the rules of the game. It helped them say, like, look, I'm not alone. And then they were much more likely to seek help when they were struggling. They went to office hours more often, and it made help seeking okay. And I think we need more workshops like that.
My colleague at Stanford, Adina Glickman, created something called the Resilience Project, which was putting together a series of videos demonstrating that people on the Stanford campus, faculty, administrators, students, had struggled in life. We were meant to narrate to some awful thing that had happened to us. I remember this because I was one of the people in the video, and basically share with students that, hey, bad stuff happens, and you figure out how to get up the next morning. And so to put the faces of folks they might respect, I think they even got Sandra Day O'Connor, who's a Stanford alum. She wasn't on video, but she wrote a PDF about a struggle she had had, Justice O'Connor, to help our kids, our students, see, nothing is wrong with you when bad things happen. You are still you. You can do this. The other thing I want to add is I was interested as a freshman dean in students inhabiting their own adulthood. What made me want to write How to Raise an Adult was too many young people. And I thought, when are they going to rebel? I'm a Gen Xer. I came to college in the 80s. If my parents had tried to do what is normal for parents to do in the lives of college students today, I would have brushed them off. Excuse me, Mom, Dad, what are you doing? And any baby boomer or Gen Xer, I think, would agree. But nowadays, they're delighted to have a parent or two to walk through their life with them. So to try to get them to hunger for their own independence, for their own right to have agency in their own life, which, by the way, will come with struggle. You will have an imperfect path, but it is your path, and that's what you should desire.
Something really fascinating there on the first point. So I've been trying my whole career since the day I arrived at Penn to open up about my own failures in the classroom, right? And so I make a list. I actually put together a failure resume, and I present it to students and say, like, look, here are all the challenges I faced. And I got some feedback this year that it wasn't useful. Really surprising. I was like, thanks, let me fail some more, and then I'll come back to you with a better list. Just what I was looking forward to. But the question I asked was why? Because several people, several different students in my class gave me the same feedback. And they said, well, the problem is you've already come past those failures. Yeah. And so, and when I think about Sandra Day O'Connor, right, it's like she's made it now. And so it's okay for her to open up.
Yeah.
The thing that I stumbled onto was I made the mistake of doing an Ask Me Anything in the classroom toward the end of the semester with my undergrads. And one of the questions was, like, what is your biggest struggle right now? And I started opening up about some family challenges that I was facing that I had not resolved. And I had 3 students email me afterwards saying it was the first moment where they felt like their professor was human.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really different way to think about normalizing struggle, but ongoing struggles as opposed to past struggles seem really different.
And yet they think, when they look at someone like you, wildly successful, beloved professor, they assume your path has been linear and perfect. So when you can say, oh yeah, I screwed up, I struggled, there are things I'm not proud of, and I became this person. What we're trying to teach them is that's how you craft a life. So I get the point that, they've succeeded, so their lesson of struggle is not relevant, and yet it is very relevant that humans, we are all exquisitely imperfect, and that's what makes us human. And why are we steering our kids' childhoods toward, this perfectionism that makes them feel that, maybe I'm not loved, maybe I'm not worthy, maybe I don't want to be around anymore if I am not leading a perfect life.
Is there anything rational about their fear of failure? In the sense, are we doing anything that makes the wages of failure so high that their trepidation actually is a rational response?
I mean, I think, I flew out here from Palo Alto, California, hotbed of Silicon Valley. Too many kids in my community think that they are loved in accordance to their GPA, that their worth as a human is some function of their high school GPA and their ACT or SAT score. They are made to feel that that's how they matter to us. They matter when they're up here, they matter less when they're down here. So yeah, I mean, what higher stakes are there than you will not be unconditionally loved? You know, you are not unconditionally loved. You are conditionally loved. Therefore, you must be perfect. Do what we say, be as good as we imagine you might be in our theoretical construct of what our child might become. Be that good, and we'll love you. I mean, I think those are the stakes for kids today.
Adam, is it bigger than just parental love, though? I mean, have we created a system in which a number of false steps take you so far off the path that there's a feeling warranted that you're never going to get back?
No, but I think we've created a narrative where people believe that that's the case. And you know, I think that actually some of the dialogue that gets twisted out of Silicon Valley contributes to this, right? Where people think either they should be terrified of failure or they should be celebrating it. And I don't know about you, but I have never met someone who's like, I'm really excited to fail today. And
spend more time in Silicon Valley.
Clearly.
Yeah.
I think, though, that what we should be doing is, I don't know, what I end up telling my students is if you never fail, you're not aiming high enough. Right? And if you're starting things worthwhile, they should not have 100% probability of success. You know, if the probability is in the range of 50%, it's a lot more likely that you're doing something challenging, ambitious, meaningful. And I think that that conversation makes it feel a little bit less scary. Like, oh, I'm just dealing with a set of odds. There are always odds. There's always uncertainty. And so maybe I'll try a few things that are a little bit lower probability than what I'm used to doing.
Do you have students whose risk aversion as a result of all this is really, really abbreviating their futures in very obvious ways?
Oh, all the time.
Give an example.
I mean, every student who graduates from Wharton and joins an investment bank. Sorry, but...
How is that tied into this? How is that a reflection?
So I think what happens is, this is senior year in the fall. Students are terrified of not getting a job. And these are students who are incapable of not getting a job, right? Like many of you have dealt with students who are very similar, and you know they're going to be okay no matter what, and they don't believe that. So what they do is the first prestigious firm that comes to campus and offers them a job, they immediately take it. And then they graduate in May, and in September I start getting calls and emails from students saying, can I quit now, or do I have to wait till January so it looks like I was there 2 years on my resume? And I think that's such a travesty because they missed out on the full year of exploring other job opportunities and other career paths that might be meaningful for them. It's a travesty because then they're in this situation where they've let go of their employer. They have no support system to search for jobs, right? They've lost university career services. And they really have to start over, and they feel like they don't know where to begin. So that worries me a lot.
So what do we do during their 4 years on campus to prevent that from happening?
I'm really desperate to interrogate the term path, the right path. But let me answer that question, and maybe we'll get back to it. We treat them as human beings. We take a fierce interest in our students developing agency in their own lives. We do not coddle them, but we care about them. You know, I think these are binaries that are inadequate. They are humans developing into their adult selves on our campuses. They ought to experience tremendous challenge, tremendous opportunity. They're going to fall. We ought to let that happen. We're a pretty safe space for students to fall. Different use of the term safe space, I realize, but a college experience is a place where a human can stumble and pick themselves up and become stronger. We need to continue to be that. We need to continue to be what we have been in the lives of young humans for a century.
You said we need to not coddle them. Aren't there many aspects of university life today that are coddling, that inoculate them, that I would even argue in some cases infantilize them? Adam?
Yes.
What are those, and how do we examine them?
To me, the most broken process is admissions, by far. I mean, you proposed, right, that Stanford should go to a 0% admissions rate.
No, I did not propose that.
A lovely April 1st satire, yes.
I mean,
some people actually thought that was a real story.
Yeah, no, Stanford's admissions office got calls saying I thought I was admitted.
Right.
And I said, they should have said, no, you, not anymore,
exactly.
not you. We can do that.
Yeah. But I actually think, I am 100% with Barry Schwartz on this, that we should turn college admissions into a lottery system. where to get into the lottery, you should be allowed to only report 1 or 2 activities, 1 or 2 volunteering experiences. And there's a limit to like how many things you can stack on your resume. And then once you've met whatever the school's criteria are, we run the lottery and you find out that some people get in and some people don't.
But Adam, what does this mean for colleges and US News and World Report? Because the colleges want to be able to report that their SAT scores are up here, right? And they want to be more and more selective so that they can rise in the rankings. I agree with Barry. I think we ought to also consider things like capping the number of APs we're going to look at. Because where I live, in Palo Alto, California, kids feel they have to take so many advanced placement courses for college to please a college admissions dean. They're mortgaging their childhoods. There are no more hours in the day today than there were when we were all coming up. But now a kid has to stuff all of that work into a normal childhood. You want to know why they lack resilience? Childhood is sucking the life out of them as they try to accumulate the grades and scores to impress us at the admission door. So if we could say, take 10 APs, but we'll only look at 4. Because we think you ought to be doing other things with your time. Or decide what your cutoff is for standardized tests, as Larry Momo, who's at Trinity School here in New York, has advocated to the College Board. Decide what your floor is. We need kids who have this or better. And then deny everybody else and look at all of those students, but take the scores off the table because you've already decided they have what it takes to thrive on your campus, and look at them more at the level of essay, at recommendations, and the activities that they've done.
I think there's a solution to your US News problem too, which is I think it would be great to at least run the experiment. I don't know if this is going to work, but as a social scientist, it causes me serious pain that we don't run experiments in the way that we run our universities. I think on this one, what I would do is I would say admissions could try the medical school residency matching model. Right? Students rank order the schools that they're interested in, and then basically the school that is at the top gets first dibs. And then they only get into one place, and they don't have to agonize over whether Brown or Princeton is a perfect fit. They have no idea whether they can judge that accurately or not. And I would find it really interesting to go through that process. And maybe then you rank schools on the basis of how many of your number 1 picks did you actually get.
Wow.
Both of you have gone to US News and World Report's rankings. You were at Stanford, you're at UPenn, right? If the 8 Ivy League schools and Stanford and MIT all said tomorrow, we are no longer furnishing information to US News and World Report, we are out of the rankings, would that system not collapse immediately?
Bravo.
Wait a minute. You're applauding. What did you say? Would that system what?
Not collapse immediately.
The system would collapse and we would return childhood to children. I seriously think that we are doing harm to our young by allowing a newspaper, a magazine. Gwen Ifill called the college issue, the swimsuit edition. She said the college issue of US News is like, I'm sorry, I'm being inarticulate. I took the red eye out here just to be with you. She said it's like the swimsuit edition of Sports Illustrated. It's the one issue on which the entire franchise rests. They are preying upon and profiting from our anxiety as parents. And I say our because I'm raising 2 teenagers, in Palo Alto myself. I am in this as a parent. I'm in this as a former dean. And if schools could opt out, like Reed College has in Portland, Oregon, who I just have such tremendous respect for. If you could opt out, band together and opt out, you would return childhood to children. Family life would no longer feel like it's an investment conversation, return an investment. We're talking about children, not stocks we want to sell short.
We're going to take questions from the audience in just 1 second. I want to ask you one other quick question that sort of ties into a panel earlier today. In the context of resilience, in the context of learning to fail, do we need to examine trigger warnings, microaggressions, grade inflation?
I'll take grade inflation.
Oh, thanks.
Of course you're taking grade inflation. That's the easy one.
No, it's actually, I have a different point of view on this, which is I think we're causing a lot of artificial failure. And we're doing grade deflation. Anytime we have professors who use forced grading curves. I think they should be banned in universities. The idea that a student has to outdo his or her peers in order to earn an A, to me, is ridiculous. We should have standards for whether you've mastered the material, and if the whole class masters it, I am thrilled, and I'm happy to give out A's, but I'm going to set that bar really high so that the odds are that students won't all do that, or they'll have to work really hard to do that. And I think that my worry there is that we're causing students to fail, to get lower grades than they deserve, right, when we force some kind of bell curve distribution. We are also teaching them the wrong message about life, which is that the world is zero-sum. And that when you go out into the world of work, you're going to have to be stacked up against your peers. And if you don't outperform them, you're not going to be successful.
Your colleague is your rival.
Exactly. I think we have a responsibility to create classrooms where you see your fellow students as people who are there to support your learning and help you succeed.
That was beautiful. I like Adam's world. I seriously love
I hope I get to live in it one day.
I love listening to you talk about stuff. Okay, I'm trying to be very succinct here on this enormously complex, hot-button subject. I'm a woman of color. I'm a corporate lawyer. I became university dean, now I'm writing full-time. I value the fact that we as a nation have become kinder toward the other. I have been the other, I am the other. And I like the fact that my kids are growing up in a place and time, at least until recently, when people had a degree of kindness, some call it political correctness, but we learned to use language that didn't demean and demoralize groups of people. I like that about America. Okay? I believe that a dorm room ought to feel like a safe space. We don't give kids roommates who fundamentally hate them. We don't put queer kids with fundamentalist religious kids because we don't think that's going to be fair to at least one of them and right for either of them, okay? I believe in safe spaces. I believe a trigger warning should be, hey, heads up, there's some really difficult stuff coming in the curriculum today on the syllabus. If you've been sexually assaulted, we're about to discuss a piece of work that entails discussion of a rape. I think a trigger warning is a chance for a human to steel themselves for what's coming rather than to do this, okay? I believe in free speech. I'm a lawyer. I believe the antidote to bad speech is more speech. And I think when our colleges and universities become places where speakers are drummed off campus or can't come at all because they're saying something so hateful or offensive, if we allow that to happen, we have lost our way. If we are damaging our democracy, if our institutions of higher education cease to be the places where the winds of freedom blow. Die Luft der Freiheit weht, Stanford's motto is where the winds of freedom blow. And if the winds of freedom can't blow on a college campus, God help us all.
We'll now turn it to the audience.
Questions in front, please. And please identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Tracy Trenum. I'm from Colorado Heights University. I would propose an even more shocking standard, which is that we quit assuming that if students go to a community college or a college in their community, that they're losers.
Yes.
And that only the Penns and the MITs are worth going to or trying for, and only those people have value.
Amen. Absolutely.
Question right in front here, too.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Boers, president of the College of Idaho.
Can we get you the microphone? I'm sorry, just want to make sure everybody hears your question. No need to apologize.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Borst. I'm president of the College of Idaho. And the question I have is about this over-parenting, the helicopter parents that you were referring to. And Julie, I loved your point, but I also, as a parent myself, think about the costs of failure and the current economic climate for about the past 20 years. And that our parents are also deathly afraid that one mistake will send them over the edge and from which they'll never be able to recover. And so it's enabled me to think a little more favorably on why parents might react. Now that gives us an obligation to create a space where failure doesn't mean that you're going to fall off the economic wagon.
I agree with you, and here's what I'm going to say back. We're mammals, and we have forgotten the fact that the job of a mammal parent is to raise offspring who can fend for themselves. This is how we got here. So while we as parents are desperately afraid of the 21st century, globalization, macroeconomic issues, rightfully so, we fool ourselves, we delude ourselves if we think the solution is, and therefore I must attend my kids' every move. We have to instill in them the skills so that they can be warriors out there, not veal. And that's not my term. I credit Joe Maru's check from the Mendon Upton School District in Massachusetts for giving me that term. It's in my book. But that's the point, okay? Of course they're rightfully afraid. But long term, we're going to be gone. We have to imagine our own demise. Nobody wants to do that. And have confidence that our kids can fend without us. Not at 5 or 12, but 20, 25, 40, pick the age you think adulthood starts these days, but claim it. and let's have confidence that our young can lead, the next generation.
And just a quick addition on that. How many of you are parents? And how many of you want your kids to have satisfying careers? Okay, one of the best things you can do for your kids then is make sure they graduate from college in a recession. Emily Bianchi found that when kids graduate during a recession, 20 years later, they are more satisfied with their jobs because they know how lucky they are to have a job. And to me, that is clear evidence that even if they don't have a great experience on the job market initially, in the long run, there's some real benefits to be gained from that kind of difficulty.
That's great. We have an anonymous question from the audience.
Anonymous.
No, we're mixing it up.
Oh, sorry.
We want candid. Don't apologize. This conversation is about a very small percentage of
Yes.
college-going kids. The vast majority go to state schools, community college, and their resilience often revolves around financial and family issues. How can we learn from these kids and how they are brought up?
Yeah. Yes. Kids who emerge from poor environments, working class environments, are the first in their families to go to college, have a tray in their toolkit that their more affluent peers lack. So those of us who are raising kids amid relative affluence have to figure out how to instill in our kids the work ethic, the self-reliance, the resilience that a tougher life might have instilled in them the hard way.
One of the more surprising features of that tougher life is Sheryl Sandberg and I have written about mattering as one of the critical resilience drivers for kids. Mattering is the belief that other people notice you, care about you, and rely on you. And that's a fundamental job of a parent, right? I think when we fall into the helicopter parenting trap, what we really are trying to do is show our kids that they matter and they have our support. What we forget is that part of showing kids that they matter is relying on them, asking their advice, asking for their help. And one of the things that unfortunately happens to a lot of kids who grow up in poverty, who grow up facing abuse or assault, is they actually have to take more care of others. They have to protect younger siblings, they have to become the parents, they have to educate their younger siblings, and all of that actually prepares them to know that their actions have value and that their lives have significance. And I think that's something we could probably do a better job with across the board.
So here's how we can value it at the level of college admission. Kids today who are trying to or as parents want them to have a manicured childhood to get into the so-called right colleges, they're not doing chores around the house and they're not holding part-time jobs because childhood seems to need to be this excessive amount of homework and tutoring and skills, sort of resume building, okay? So if at the admissions level, one could articulate a value around, tell us the work you've done. What kind of part-time job have you held? If all the people in the room turned to their admissions people and said, ask them to write an essay on part-time work they've held, that could radically change things as well. Part-time work and or chores, according to the Harvard Grant study, are the greatest predictor of professional success in life, that you worked hard as a child, that you rolled up your sleeves and pitched in and had to be useful. That teaches them something that will serve them tremendously well over their professional careers. And I think colleges can actually incentivize that by asking about it in admissions.
Back to you, Frank.
We are out of time. Thank you for a successful panel on failure. And thank you. I had to go back to the oxymoron. It's a pleasure to be with you both. Thank you all for listening to us. And I guess you're going to wrap up the conference now, Adam, right?
Thank you. Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.